This is a production of WKNO Memphis. Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
What happens next after a federal judge stops the formation of the suburban school districts? Tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes, publisher of the Memphis Daily News. Thanks for joining us. We're joined tonight to talk about the ruling on the schools, and joining us are Sharon Goldsworthy, Mayor of Germantown. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the invitation.
Martavius Jones, a member of the Unified School Board and former member of the Memphis City School Board. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Also David Pickler, a member of the Unified School Board and a former member of the County School Board.
Glad to be here.
Being here. And Bill Dries, senior reporter from the Memphis Daily News. Let me start. I think probably everyone at this table certainly is up to speed on the ruling and so on, but I'm going to ask you, Bill, if you just give us a quick primer on what the ruling was this week, what that means as far as we know, and what's up next in terms, because the court battle isn't quite over. So let's start with you.
Right. Not over by a long shot on several fronts, but Federal Judge Hardy Mays has issued his ruling this past Tuesday evening on the state laws and how they interact with the state constitution on forming municipal school districts. And his ruling was that one of that trio of laws, one of the key laws, he ruled is void. And so all of the moves toward municipal school districts that we've had this past year are void according to his ruling. So that's where we are at this particular moment.
And let's start with you, Mayor Goldsworthy. You were one of the Germantown was one of the suburbs involved in the court case, defeated at this round. Let me, I guess, start with the most obvious question: is what next for Germantown?
Okay. Well, we have been huddling with the lawyers because we wanted to fully understand exactly what the extent and intent of the judge's ruling was. And as Mr. Dries has pointed out, it really gives us a block on the process that we have been under to ramp up for organizing and actually starting a school district in August of 13. That was what the original law allowed us to do, and we believed that it was appropriate or helpful to go ahead and prepare for that eventuality, such things as having the city referendum on whether or not we wanted to do this, as well as election of school board. And the portion of the law that the judge ruled on had been put together really in Nashville because there seemed to be a little lack of clarity about whether we could do it. We went ahead and did it under that law. The judge has since now said, no, that doesn't work. So in terms of what we do now, we are awaiting the judge's ruling on the other portions of the law. In the meantime, we're also looking at other options and alternatives.
So, I mean, some of those options have been discussed, appealing the decision, going ahead and starting negotiations with, is there some way to negotiate or go through a mediation or go back into a conversation? People have talked about, the suburban schools might form charter schools to kind of create some autonomy within the Unified School Board. Are all those options on the table as far as you are concerned?
I think it's premature to zero in on any specific one. I think there are all sorts of possibilities, and in the next few weeks we'll examine all of those.
Martavius, let me bring you in. The other night, the school board meeting, Billy Orgel, the chair of the Unified School Board, started talking about, hey, it's time for us parties to get together and start talking. You were instrumental, went back on the Memphis City School Board in, the breakup or the forced unification of the schools by the city schools giving up their charter. Is it, from your perspective, time for everyone to start talking, or is it more important for the legal process to play out?
I think that it's time for everybody to concentrate on what's best for all children in Shelby County, regardless of where they live. I think that this has given us some time to focus on bringing together what was Memphis City Schools and what was Shelby County Schools, and just focus on making a world-class school system for all children, regardless of where they live. Now, of course, we know that there could be other legal things that take place in the background because there are certain provisions of Norris Todd 1.0 or North Star 2.0, as I refer to them, that still have to be resolved. But at least the work of the school board can be to consummate the merger between the two.
But at some point, you hear people say, at some point, aren't the idea, you put an emphasis on all children and a school system for all children. And at the same time, the suburban people, the suburban governments have made clear they don't want to be in this unified school district. Is there a point at which it's better for the school board, the unified school board, to say, all right, let's find a way for you to get out? Because otherwise we're going to just be fighting and fighting and fighting and trying to keep you in, even though the law, I mean, right now they have to stay in. They have to stay in based on what Hardy Mays came down with. But isn't that, from one point of view, counterproductive to have such a divisive situation within the schools?
Well, I think that what everyone in the state of Tennessee has to abide by is Tennessee Code Annotated, of what the current state law is. And what I think has been something that, in my opinion, could not have been mediated is a constitutional issue. So residents of Germantown, Collierville, Bartlett had a privilege that someone who lives in Manchester, Tennessee, someone who lives in Bellevue, Tennessee, or Belmead didn't have a privilege to do, and that was to create their own municipal school district. When the Tennessee General Assembly banned the formation of municipal school districts, that applied statewide. And so they were arguing, in my opinion, for a right that was only for residents of Shelby County.
David Pickler, a similar question to you. I mean, is there a point at which, again, you were from the county school board, head of the county school board back when it still existed in that form. I mean, do you see it that at this time, I mean, you've got a whole bunch of people, the suburbs, who don't want to be a part of this unified school board, of which you are now a member. Right. Do you think the unified school board should move in a direction of saying, look, let's find a negotiated way to let them out?
Well, I think the first thing we need to do is we need to respect the voice of everyone in Shelby County. And including in that are the people of suburban Shelby County. And I think it's undeniable the message that was received in August and again in November in overwhelming numbers when the people of suburban Shelby County said, we want to retain some sense of autonomy. We want to have the opportunity to have that self-determination over the way we deliver public education. So I think it's foolhardy for us to go into a situation thinking that we have this great unification, everyone's on board, and not understanding the fact that there are some divisive issues that are out there. The Transition Planning Commission that was formed as a part of the Norris-Todd Act in 2011 envisioned exactly this opportunity, because when we approved the multiple achievement path, and Mr. Jones and I co-chaired that committee on how you organize that school system, we envisioned the fact that as we look at public education going forward, we need to look at it in a different lens, because it's going to be different than what we had in the past. We're going to have charters. We're going to have the state-run achievement school districts. We're going to have this large so-called unified system, but we also have the opportunity under state law, and Mr. Jones talked about the fact that we all live under Tennessee Code Annotated. That Transition Planning Commission also envisioned that there could be municipal districts or the charter management organizations that could be available as options for the suburban communities.
And is that the idea? I remember months ago, maybe it was a year ago, I think you were on the show talking about that, of having a lot of autonomy. That technically, say the Germantown School District is the Germantown schools are under the unified umbrella, but they have tremendous autonomy under it. Is that a possibility that you're talking about here?
And that is one of those possibilities that Mayor Goldsworthy was alluding to. We understand that there are issues that still rest before the judge, and that he's going to be requesting briefs on whether or not those other two elements of Norris-Todd will apply as it relates to whether municipal districts can ever be allowed. So what we've put in place with that transition plan and with those multiple achievement paths and those charter districts was another viable alternative available under Tennessee law. No law change would have to be required that would allow Germantown, Collierville, Bartlett to have that autonomy, have the ability to operate the schools independently.
Okay, Bill.
Mayor Goldsworthy, is there an acceptable form of autonomy, in your opinion, that can be explored, not decided on, but just talked about, that stops short of a Germantown school board?
I think we've envisioned complete autonomy, and that's over everything, total local control. Something short of that, I don't think would appear to meet the expectation that has been expressed by our communities and by those who have really worked toward this goal. Is there the opportunity to talk about it? I'm not learned in all the details of the state law, to date, I've not seen anything that would approximate that. Certainly there are things that come kind of close, but there are other issues attached to some of those. So,
and it sounds as if you're saying that there is at least a tendency on your part, possibly on the other municipalities' part, to have the judge decide this issue in total.
okay. Well, that's going to happen. He's given the parties until December 27th to submit any additional briefs. And so a very significant piece of legislation, and that is to the point as to whether the lifting of the ban as it was originally allowed under Norris-Todd 1.0 and such, whether that is viable. And certainly that's a very important question for us to have resolved.
Mm-hmm. In terms of timing on this, as the mayors work out what the next step is, do you have any sense as to whether or not there is any chance left for municipal school districts that would operate during the 2013-2014 school year?
I think that has become increasingly less likely, and it simply goes that if the judge were to find, say early in the year, rule favorably to our position on original Norris-Todd, the amount of time that would then be remaining for us to go back through the ordinance process, to get the vote from the community, to hold that referendum, and if it is approved, then to hold a school board election, there's the reality there that we are already facing and understanding. But that would certainly not, if that kind of ruling certainly gives us a reason to want to go forward in the way that we have.
What is your concern? Set aside legalities for a second, just practically speaking, that your concern, or maybe more fairly the concerns you hear from the people in Germantown, that on day one of 2013, and the Germantown school is fully under the authority of the Unified School Board, what are people's biggest concern? What are they afraid could happen without that local control being a part of that big system?
I think there are many unanswered questions as to what school will look like. We've had a lot of assurances that no, the children won't be moved, faculties will remain intact, all those kinds of things will be pretty much in place. I think the TPC had kind of indicated that if that would bring stability, that would be a very good thing. But there are nuances as to decisions that will have been made in the meantime about how programming will be underway, and all just the pieces of merger that have to come together over the next few months suggest to us that things will not be business as usual.
And you're nodding your head, David. Is that what you see? I mean, you're on the Unified School Board. I mean, do you think that 2013 Germantown schools, Collierville schools, all these suburban schools, it will be dramatically different than it's been?
I don't believe it's going to be dramatically different, but I think that the issues that the mayor raises and the issues that I've heard from the people of Germantown, Collierville, all throughout suburban Shelby County have a good solid basis, because the reality is that this board is looking at perhaps upwards of $150 million budget shortfall. There are major policy changes that are already taking place. There are major budgetary changes, perhaps programmatic and educational changes that will have to be made by this board. And the fact that 85 to 90% of the voters of suburban Shelby County live in these communities expressed their concern about the future of academic quality, I think there are issues to be discussed, and I think there's concerns to be raised. Will there be a cliff that will fall off in Germantown, and academic quality will drop dramatically and there'll be major changes? Probably not. But I think that there are valid concerns and changes, and which is why, in the event that we're not able to receive that first objective, which clearly is full autonomy. I completely embrace what Mayor Goldsworthy is saying. We want municipal districts. We want to be able to have the ability to have that full control. But if we can't get that, then we have to begin at least a conversation about other options.
Martavius, let me turn the question around and say and you may not be the right person to ask, but I'm going to put it on you anyway. From the point of view of the non-suburban schools, the city schools, or the city perspective, what is the compelling reason to keep the suburban schools in? Now, I understand we talked a second ago about the legalities and Tennessee code, so let's set aside the legalities for a second, and let's just talk about the practicalities. What is the biggest concern that folks have who want to keep the suburbs in, what's going to happen on day one? Is it a fear that they will take money with them, that they will take the buildings with them unfairly? Is it something else entirely? What is that concern, that compelling reason to keep the suburbs in?
Well, I don't know if there's any type of compelling reason that, or reason that I can give you. You know, I would sit here and say that I don't think that there's any, the only thing that's preventing the schools right now, the municipal schools right now, from being formed is state law.
Right.
And so, you know, so that's the only thing that's keeping them in. I don't think there's anyone that's saying, well, no, don't let them break off. You know, I still think that there is, in my opinion, a legitimate concern about the school buildings. And
that goes back to the debt service and who's going to pay, who's paid for them and who will pay for the debt service going
yes,
forward.
and because if you look at most of the, you know, if you look at the population growth of Shelby County, you know, there was in 1980, and half of the schools were built prior to 1980. Memphis was 83% of the county's population.
Right.
And so presumably 83% of all of the school buildings that were built in Shelby County, that money came from Memphis. And if you look at Bartlett being the largest suburb, 6%, then there's no way that any individual municipality could have individually financed those buildings. So I think that that's another issue that would be yet to be addressed.
Why, let me, on this question, what do you hear? Why do people want the suburbs to stay in? Why is that so important to them? Again, separate from the legal issue that there's not a clear path, and that's being litigated, and that may be legislated, and so on. Mm-hmm. Let's say there was a clear path. What is it that compels people to say, no, you suburbs can't go off and form your own school system?
Well, I've been on the board for nearly 15 years now, and one of the trends that I've seen evidence over and over and over again, whether it be from county commission or other places, is there is definitely a huge gap between urban and suburban interest, and it's almost a war in some cases, you know, between a few people in the city of Memphis wanting to legislate against suburban interest, and that's unfortunate in many regards. I've also heard school board members, former Memphis City school board members, talk about the fact that if we could take the test scores from suburban Shelby County, from Shelby County schools, and average those with the test scores in the city of Memphis, that would make all the scores look better. The issue from suburban Shelby County is they have a legacy of excellence. They have, you know, we have a legacy of strong parent engagement. They have a legacy of strong student achievement. And the people of suburban Shelby County simply want to retain those elements that they hold dear.
But at the same time, I mean, within the city is a much bigger school system. Sure. And so you've got school systems that are, you know, dominate the state failure list, and we can harp on those negatives. At the same time, you can point to elementary schools like Grahamwood and White Station High School, the optional program, and I think Richland, which is a city school that had the Tennessee Teacher of the Year, the first Memphis-based Tennessee Teacher of the Year in something like 30 years. Right. So the city can look to a legacy, as you said, of excellence in some of its schools and not others. And that the city deals with such a range, a socioeconomic range, I mean, of impoverished kids and very not impoverished kids. Right. So they have that legacy too, they might argue.
But see, it's not a zero-sum game. Okay. Our position is that trying to retain a great legacy within the suburban district should not in any way diminish the opportunity of the city school board to pursue that same degree of excellence.
Let me pursue this urban-suburban point with something that happened right after Chairman Orgel made his call for talks in this. Superintendent Kreiner-Cash of the Memphis City School System dittoed basically what Chairman Orgel said, but then he added another part. I don't know if we have the graphic of this or not, but he basically said,
we do.
Quoting him directly.
It's going to be an urban school system, Cash said. The municipalities come in, but we are going to be an urban school system. We want you to come in and be a part of a great urban school system.
I want to go to both of you and to the mayor. David, what does that say to your constituents in the suburbs?
The message to my constituents is that you have a district that's going to be focusing its resources and its priorities towards a goal and towards an area that is very different from the issues and concerns of suburban Shelby County. That's one of the issues that Mayor Goldsworthy has talked about, is the fact that we want to make sure that those schools in Germantown and Collierville and Bartlett and Millington are able to receive the focus, the energy, the leadership in terms of great principals, great teacher assignments, so that those schools can retain and continue to be great. And while we embrace the opportunity and the responsibility to provide great education for the urban interest, we shouldn't do it at the expense of suburban interest.
Martavius, where are you on this? And we should note that this is a question that's been debated for some time, and to my view, looks like it's nowhere near settled. What do you think of Superintendent Cash's statement?
I think it was very profound, realizing that one of the things when I listen to his statement, I think about the state of Florida, and you look at academic achievement statewide in Florida, it ranks in the top 5, if not the top 5, the top 10 in the country. But you have large school districts that serve urban, suburban, and rural. They are all county districts. Miami-Dade, Hillsborough, which is the Tampa area, Duval, which is Jacksonville. They serve all populations. And Florida as a state does better than Tennessee. So I don't agree with the fact that if you have an urban or a large county school district, then academic achievement is going to suffer. When we look at successful school districts in the state of Tennessee, when we compare them to nationwide academic achievement levels, Tennessee ranks at the bottom. So and that's considering the Brentwoods, the Franklins. When you look at NAEP in Tennessee as a whole, we don't compare. So when we look at academic gains that need to take place statewide, Tennessee can do better. And I don't think that just because you have an urban school district, then academic gains are going to suffer.
Mayor Goldsworthy, what do you think of that statement from Dr. Cash?
Okay, this is the first that I've heard it, and I regret that I've not had time to think on it. I think to what Mr. Pickler was saying about what I had said over the past, I think that is very much at the core of the concerns that we have in the suburban areas. In the end, there's a finite amount of money from Shelby County taxpayers to be given over to public education. And we absolutely recognize that students in underachieving schools require more resources. But if you have a finite amount of money and you need to address those particular needs reasonably and rationally so, then that means it has to come from someplace else. And I think some of the legacy that has been created in the Shelby County schools, particularly in our communities, has relied substantially on having a fair share of the dollars. They will continue to have the support from the community, which has been substantial outside of tax dollars. So I think in the decisions made about how programming will be funded across, we understand the need to address the most critical issues with probably more money, but where's it going to come from? And if it's not additional tax dollars, then it's hard to think that it's not going to affect the kind of programming that we desire in our own communities. And I think another piece of this that we have not talked about, we are just not convinced that bigger is better. One of the reasons that we think that some of our communities function pretty well is because there is such a short distance between the citizens of Germantown and Germantown City Hall. And the amount of administration and management simply is not there that you would find in a large bureaucracy. Doesn't mean that bigger cannot be well done, right. But our observation would be is that there is a great deal to be said for smaller school districts.
Martavius, your take on that? I mean, that's always been a criticism of the city schools, fair or not, that back in the day, it's just too many layers of bureaucracy, too many deputy superintendents, just a big bureaucracy that distanced, the parents from the decision makers. Was the city school system on its own too bureaucratic, and is that if that's a legacy, is that legacy of bureaucracy carrying over into the unified school district?
Well, I don't subscribe to the large and the bureaucratic nature of what was Memphis City Schools. Yes, it was the 21st largest school district in the country, but I still go back to what's important is academic achievement levels. There's nothing that says that, and if you look at a Prince George's County, which has over 150,000 students, when you look at, I go back to Florida as a whole, when you have large school districts, I don't see anything that denotes the fact that we will have a large school district If we focus on what's important, that's academic achievement, we need to raise academic.
But we need to talk
achievement
about
there.
that, though, because, if we raise the issue of academic achievement, then, then that really goes to the heart of the concerns of suburban Shelby County. And the facts are undeniable. When you have in Memphis City Schools 69 of the state's poorest performing schools, and you have, the state, finally coming in and beginning to take over schools through the new Achievement School District, then, that's a real concern. In Shelby County, we're not a perfect school system. We weren't a perfect school system, but we were able to go into areas of high poverty, of high concern, in areas, for example, like the Jeter Elementary, which was just recognized this week as a National Blue Ribbon School. It's an example of what the mayor is talking about, of how you can align resources and put it into place and achieve great things. We have a legacy and have had a legacy of great student achievement, and the real concern as we go forward is making sure that now with diminished resources, because remember, when the city of Memphis, Memphis City Schools gave up their charter, they also gave up $57 million of funding from the city of Memphis. How do we give the people all throughout Shelby County, suburban and urban, the assurances that academic quality will be greater, even the same, if we don't have less resources?
We've got about 30 seconds left. Your answer to that. What are the assurances for the suburbs?
One assurance for the suburbs is that I said this from the beginning, the day of the referendum, the day before, the day after, when school starts next year, life will be the same as it has been in the past for 99% of the people, for the vast majority. If Ms. Smith was a teacher at Germantown High School, Ms. Smith is going to be there the day after the merger. She'll be there very likely a year after the merger. So I think that it's the fear of the unknown.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. It was a good conversation. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about in the coming weeks. Thank you for joining us. Join us again next week.